casual sweatshirt, an opulent showroom, and a stunning revelation. What occurs if a manager of a car dealership makes a mistake? The guy who owns it all in secret. In bustling Austin, Texas, Tyrone turned into the parking lot of Paramount Motors, the flagship dealership he had just purchased. The sleek luxury cars parked in front, their shiny exteriors virtually blazing in the afternoon sun, glinted in the desert heat. After parking his small SUV in an unmarked area in the back, he got out and looked around the dealership's exterior. On the contrary, he was not dressed to attract notice. His outfit for the day consisted of sneakers, jeans that were a little worn, and a basic gray hoodie. He made a conscious choice to wear casual attire. He desired to see the dealership's actual operations, to see how it functioned when no one was aware that the new boss was observing. He saw a few staff members conversing close to the front desk as he made his way to the entrance. Through the glass doors came the faint buzz of talk and laughter. Tyrone walked inside after opening the door. Filled with the subtle aroma of fresh wax and leather, the air-conditioned showroom stood in sharp contrast to the heat outside. Bright overhead lighting shone on rows of immaculate vehicles. When he entered, the commotion subsided. Tyrone saw the employee's eyes dart to his sneakers and hoodie as they exchanged quick glances. The slight change in energy, the kind that spoke louder than words, was palpable to him. However, his purpose was to watch, not to speculate. Then she came, Serena, from the other side of the showroom. Having keen features and an even sharper gaze, Serena was a middle-aged woman. Her polished heels and fitted blazer exuded authority, and the clipboard she carried under her arm conveyed efficiency. Her heels clicking on the shiny floor, she walked purposefully up. There was a stiffness in her smile that Tyrone noticed despite her initially courteous look. Serena said, "Excuse me," in a clipped, chilly voice. "Can I help you with something?" Tyrone grinned, his expression composed. He remarked nonchalantly, "Just here to look around," pointing to the cars. Serena's brows sharpened as she looked him over. Her courteous mask somewhat loosened, giving way to something less hospitable. With a hint of uncertainty in her voice, she inquired, "Are you shopping for a car?" Tyrone continued to smile as he nodded. "Something like that." Serena pursed her lips. Before she could say anything further, a different staff member yelled, "Hey, Serena, the delivery guy is here. Well, we cater to a very specific clientele here. Most of our inventory requires pre-qualification. Perhaps I could recommend—" After a little lapse in focus, she returned her attention to Tyrone, as if to make sure he wouldn't stray too far. Tyrone's tone remained light, but he lifted an eyebrow. "You're assuming I'm not qualified?" She was surprised by the question, but only momentarily. Her stance stiffened as she recovered rapidly. Her smile seemed forced. "I'm just trying to save you some time," she said. "These vehicles start at 6 figures. Maybe I can direct you to—" Tyrone's face remained unwavering, but he took note of her word choice within. He maintained his coolness, but it was impossible to deny the faint sting of her presumptions. Serena gazed intently at him as the moment continued, tension lingering in the air. Tyrone pretended to like one of the cars in the showroom as he looked about. It was a sleek, aggressively designed silver coupe. He looked back at Serena as his fingertips touched the door handle. "Nice car," was all he said. She attempted another smile, but her brows wrinkled slightly. "It is. Perhaps when you're ready to make a serious inquiry, we can set up an appointment. For now, I'll have to ask you not to touch the vehicles." Tyrone paused to think about what she had said, then got out of the car. With his hands in his pockets, he gave a single nod and motioned for her to go on. "All right, let's hear it. What would you recommend for someone like me?" Startled by the directness of his question, Serena blinked. Tyrone, however, interrupted her to say, "If you think you know what I need, I'm all ears." Her courteous exterior somewhat broke to show her impatience. "Maybe something a little more budget-friendly. I can give you directions to a dealership that specializes in pre-owned vehicles." Tyrone's eyes did not meet the slight smile. He had had enough. He remarked quietly, "That's quite the assumption." Serena hesitated for a second as the sentence lingered in the air. Then she straightened her shoulders and regained her composure. She responded, "I'll be back with a list of options," and hurried out. Tyrone's face was unreadable as he watched her leave. He looked back at the silver coupe, the glossy shine reflecting his image. It was going to be a day of surprises. With his hands in his pockets and his eyes straying over the automobile line, Tyrone stood in the middle of the showroom. He wasn't prone to making snap judgments, but it was difficult to overlook Serena's contemptuous demeanor. Though he occasionally caught a glimpse in his direction, the personnel had returned to their chats around him. The coded glances and the unspoken judgment were the kind of scrutiny he had grown used to over the years. A moment later, Serena came back with her clipboard, gripped like a shield. She was irritated as seen by her quick step and fake smile. "All right," she murmured, coming to a halt a short distance from him. "I've compiled a few options that might be more suitable for your situation." Tyrone's head cocked slightly. "My situation?" "Yes," said Serena in a tight voice. She gave him a printed list of used cars, each with thorough descriptions and prices significantly lower than what the dealership usually sells. "These are more accessible models, reliable, economical, and practical." Tyrone silently accepted the list, looking at each item as he read it. A compact hybrid, an older SUV, and a used sedan. He folded the paper and tucked it into his pocket, quickly concealing the tiny amusement that pricked his lips. His tone was level as he said, "Thank you for the effort." His answer appeared to disarm Serena for a moment, but she soon recovered, placing her hands on her hips. Her voice trailed off like though she were going to reveal a secret. "Listen," she murmured, "I'm just trying to be realistic with you. Paramount Motors isn't for everyone. I don't want to waste your time." Tyrone looked at her, his face steady but composed. "And what exactly makes you think I'm not your target customer?" For a brief moment, Serena paused. She remarked, "I've been doing this a long time. I can tell when someone's out of their depth." Tyrone reiterated, "Out of their depth?" in a tone that was almost contemplative. "Interesting." Serena's eyes flashed with doubt, but she persisted nevertheless. "I'm just being honest. It's better to be upfront than to have someone leave disappointed." Tyrone shook his head a little and laughed softly. "Honest, huh? I like honesty. How about this? You let me speak to the owner. Think we can make that happen?" Serena raised her eyebrows. She appeared truly surprised for the first time. "The owner?" Tyrone responded, "That's right," in a light, somewhat conversational tone. "I'd like to have a word with them." A flimsy attempt at a grin tugged Serena's lips. "Well, that's not possible today. The owner doesn't just drop by for casual visits. They're a busy person." Tyrone responded, "I'm sure they are," with a small nod. "But maybe you could give them a call. Let them know I'm here. I think they'd want to meet me." Serena gritted her teeth. It was obvious that she was getting impatient. "Look, sir, I'm trying to be as polite as possible, but this is getting ridiculous. I have other customers to attend to. If you're serious about buying a car, we can schedule a meeting with one of our sales consultants. Otherwise," Tyrone's voice was still calm, but suddenly it had a distinct edge. "Otherwise what?" he questioned. Serena's annoyance boiled to the surface as her eyes narrowed. The words hung in the air, laden with implication. "Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Tyrone remained motionless, staring into her eyes. The whole showroom appeared to hold its breath for a second. After then, Tyrone slowly took his phone out of his pocket. He responded, "All right," as he flipped through his contacts. "I'll make the call myself." Serena furrowed her brow and blinked. "What are you doing?" Tyrone answered, "Just calling the owner," and held the phone up to his ear. "Shouldn't take long." Serena's confidence wavered, and her annoyance turned to perplexity. Her mouth opened to speak, but nothing came out. A few workers had paused their work to watch the sight that was developing around them. "Just a moment," Tyrone said, gesturing with his finger, before turning slightly away and spoke into the phone. "Yeah, it's me. I'm at the dealership. Everything's fine. Just a little misunderstanding. Could you let them know I'm here?" Turning back to Serena, he hung up and put the phone back in his pocket. With a simple, "They'll be here shortly," he said. Serena's jaw hung open as she gazed at him. "Who? Who did you just call?" Tyrone took a while to respond. He instead looked around the showroom, his eyes lingering on the employees who were now paying close attention. "Guess we'll find out," he said in a tone that was almost lighthearted. Everyone in the room felt the weight of the stress pushing down on them. Serena moved uneasily, her poise starting to falter. The place seemed to be stuck in time, even though minutes had passed. Serena busied herself with her clipboard, but her methodical and rigid movements revealed her uneasiness. Tyrone, meanwhile, waited still behind one of the high-end SUVs, his composed manner just heightening the tension. While stealing looks at the scenario that was developing, the few employees who were dispersed across the showroom muttered to each other. Everyone was obviously waiting for someone or something. The silence was broken by the sound of the main doors opening. The polished shoes of a well-dressed man in a navy suit clicked quietly on the tile floor as he entered. His eyes instantly found Tyrone, and his face was warm but serious. The man smiled broadly and said, "Mr. Brooks," holding out his hand as he came closer. "So good to see you." A tiny smile tugged at the corners of Tyrone's lips as he firmly returned the handshake. "Thanks for coming, Jordan. Appreciate it." Everyone in the room tensed. As Serena's gaze shifted between Tyrone and Jordan, the regional director of the dealership, her clipboard almost fell out of her hands. Her bewilderment soon turned into obvious worry. Her voice was unsure as she repeated, "Wait, Mr. Brooks." Jordan's amiable manner changed to one that was more formal and even abrupt as he faced her. "Serena, I see you've already met Mr. Brooks." Serena blinked, opening and closing her mouth as if she was trying to find the appropriate words. I, um, I didn't realize." Jordan's tone was stern as he concluded. "You didn't realize he's the new owner of this dealership?" With a contrite expression on his face, he looked at Tyrone. "I trust this wasn't your ideal welcome." Tyrone stopped him with a raised hand. His voice was calm, but there was a weight to his words that caused the whole room to cling to them. "It's all right, Jordan. I think Serena and I just got off on the wrong foot." With her clipboard gripped to her chest like a lifeline, Serena stepped back as her face went pale. She stumbled. I'm so sorry," her words almost audible above a whisper. "I didn't know." Tyrone said, "You didn't know what?" in a hard but gentle tone. "That I could own a place like this? That someone like me might actually belong here?" She appeared completely disoriented for a second as her eyes grew wide. "I didn't mean—" Tyrone interrupted her by raising a hand. He stepped up and said, "It's fine, Serena, really." His voice lowered just enough to cause everyone to lean in. "But let me ask you something. If I hadn't been the owner, would you have treated me any differently? Would you have given me the same respect you'd give someone who walked in here wearing a suit and tie?" Serena parted her lips but kept them shut. The quiet was overwhelming. Tyrone gave a nod as if her quiet was sufficient. With a new power in his voice, he turned to Jordan. "Let's gather everyone in the conference room. I think it's time we had a little chat about how things are run around here." Tension permeated the air as the staff filed into the modern conference room. With its glass walls and contemporary furniture, the room was meant to wow, but today it felt constricting. Seated close to the rear, Serena's normally assured manner was replaced with a tense silence. Tyrone commanded the attention of everyone in the room as he stood at the head of the table, composed and in control. Jordan stood close to the door, his arms folded, his face inscrutable as he observed the employees settling in. As Tyrone cleared his throat and looked around the gathering, the soft murmur of whispers subsided. Tyrone said, "Thank you all for joining me on short notice," in a stern but measured tone. "For those of you who don't know, my name is Tyrone Carter, and as of last month, I'm the new owner of Paramount Motors." A few employees expressed surprise in their murmurs, and their responses ranged from shame to curiosity. Serena avoided making eye contact as she slid deeper in her chair. Tyrone went on, "I came here today dressed casually for a reason," in a firm voice. "I wanted to see how this dealership operates when no one knows who I am. I wanted to experience what a potential customer might feel walking through these doors." He paused to allow the words to sink in, then went on. "What I experienced today was disappointing. I was judged not for what I could bring to the table, but for how I looked. And I'm not here to single anyone out, but we need to talk about what that says about the culture of this dealership." Serena's face reddened as she shifted uneasily in her chair. Tyrone glanced at her for a moment, then returned his attention to the others. His words, "This isn't just about me. It's about every person who walks through those doors, every customer who doesn't fit into someone's preconceived notion of what a luxury car buyer looks like. Hesitantly, one of the younger salespeople held out his hand. Tyrone gave him a nod. Go ahead. Mr. Brooks, the man said hesitantly, I think most of us try to treat customers fairly, but sometimes it's hard not to make assumptions. Tyrone nodded, his face contemplative. He remarked, I get that. We all have biases whether we want to admit it or not. But here's the thing. It's not enough to just try to be fair. We have to actively challenge those biases. We have to create an environment where everyone feels respected, regardless of their appearance, background, or anything else. He took a moment to process the words, then went on. This dealership has built a reputation for excellence. But excellence isn't just about the cars we sell. It's about the experience we provide. And from now on, that experience is going to be built on respect, inclusivity, and fairness. Though some faces remained cautious, there was a general feeling of agreement throughout the room. Tyrone's eyes landed on Serena, who was sitting motionless with her hands clenched in her lap. I want to give you a chance to speak, Serena. Is there anything you'd like to say? He replied kindly but firmly. Everyone looked at her. Her voice was almost heard as she paused. Upon uttering the words, I made a mistake, her cheeks heated. I misjudged you, and for that, I'm truly sorry. Tyrone nodded, but it was impossible to read his face. Thank you for saying that, he said. I hope this experience will serve as a reminder for all of us, not just you, because change starts with accountability. He faced the group once more. Moving forward, we'll be implementing new training programs to ensure this dealership represents the values I believe in. Every customer deserves to be treated with dignity, no exceptions. If anyone has an issue with that, now's the time to speak up. There was silence in the room. Only the gentle hum of the air conditioner broke the eerie silence in the meeting room. Tyrone's words weighed heavily on everyone in the room, yet no one spoke. Tyrone spoke again in a calm but determined tone, after allowing the silence to last just long enough to convey his point. Good, he said. I'm glad to see we're all on the same page. Change isn't always easy, but it's necessary, and this dealership is going to lead by example. Ning. He stepped back from the table and leaned forward a little, his hands resting softly on the edge. Let me make something clear. I didn't come here today to humiliate anyone. I came to understand what kind of culture I've inherited and how we can make it better. He glanced at Serena, who was still sitting calmly in the back. Serena, he replied, his voice slightly lowering so that it was obvious he wasn't disparaging her. You're an experienced manager, and I'm sure you've worked hard to get where you are. But today was a wake-up call for you and for all of us. For the first time, Serena looked up and met his eyes. She responded, I understand, in a tremulous but earnest voice. I was wrong, and I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Tyrone gave a nod. I believe in second chances, he stated simply, but accountability comes first. I'll be meeting with you one-on-one to discuss next steps. For now, let's focus on moving forward. He stood up straight and returned his focus to the other members of the team. We're not just selling cars here. We're building trust, creating relationships, and representing a standard of excellence. If you're on board with that, I'm here to support you every step of the way. A more sincere and stronger murmur of agreement was heard. A sense of renewed purpose appeared to replace the initial stress as the team appeared to relax. Jordan, who had been silently waiting at the entrance, even gave a nod of approval. Tyrone gave a small smile, the sort that suggested relief and resolve at the same time. All right then, let's get back to work. And remember, how we treat people matters more than anything we sell. Tyrone noticed Serena hovering near the entrance as the staff started to flow out of the room. Her hands twisted anxiously as she hesitantly walked toward him. Mr. Brooks, she said quietly, I want to thank you for giving me a chance to do better. I won't let you down. Tyrone gave her a long look before answering in a steady tone. I hope you mean that, Serena. Actions speak louder than words, but I believe people can change if they're willing to try. Her eyes were earnest as she nodded. I am. Tyrone turned to Jordan after watching her go. Let's set up a meeting with the staff next week, he replied. I want to make sure everyone knows what's expected moving forward. Jordan smiled, clearly appreciating Tyrone. You've got it, boss. Tyrone looked around at the cars as he returned to the showroom, their shiny surfaces reflecting the afternoon sun. Even though he had a lot of work ahead of him, he felt hopeful for the first time that day. This was more than just operating a car dealership. It was about building something greater, a place where people were valued for who they were rather than how they looked. Tyrone was prepared to take the lead.